Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the Tales from the Park book launch party. Tales from the Park went out Thursday live on Amazon. So welcome. This is the book launch party. My name is Zara Altair. I'm the story bodyguard, and this is author Tim Hammill. Actually, I should say co-author Tim Hammill, because he wrote the story with Max. So, Tim, welcome.
Yes, I did. How are you, Zara?
I'm fine. I was out in the rain all day with my granddaughter. I had a great day. So, Tim, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself first, and then we'll get into story writing.
Well, lately I've just been writing. I'm working on Max's fifth book, depending on how you look at it. I started cooking, doing a little bit of that, and just thinking about the future with my furry little guy.
Yeah, he's a good guy. So, how did Max come to you? I mean, it's like Max came and said,
He is unusual, isn't he?
yeah.
Well, I was writing about a couple of gangsters who were very dark. They were fun guys, but there was lots of violence, and it was leading me down a path that soon became really depressing. And it was suggested to me that I find something or somebody 180 degrees away from these fellas, right?
Mm-hmm.
What came to mind, because they did a lot of the action that happened with these guys happened in a trailer park, so my mind didn't travel very far from the park, and there's lots of cats in the park, and I knew that the trailers are like little self-contained stories onto themselves. And who better than to find out what's going on than somebody that is very, very stealthy? And it just came to me. My muse, Max, helped. He talks to me. I listen.
So most people think of a muse as a beautiful woman or, something like that. The muses, and you have a little furry guy named Max.
15 pounds of Max.
So I think one of the most distinctive things about the stories that Max tells is his very, very unique voice. So how did you come to know his voice?
Oh, that was easy. He just simply spoke to me. No. He told me how it was going to be. It was very instinctive for me. From the first story on, it's always been Max's voice. Mm-hmm. Even though there are some things that happened to me, mainly from my childhood, that have crept into the stories, most of the events are somewhat universal and totally Max.
And
after all, everybody has to remember, Matt, he has a bottom line with all of this, and that is, in fact, that he is a cat.
He is a cat, and I think one of the things that's so charming about the stories is the things that happen are all cat related.
Yeah, he lives in this world, and he's got, well, actually, he lives in two worlds. He lives in a world of cats, and his place, and he thinks he's, pardon the expression, top dog in the world of felines. He has some rivalries, in that world, but he also lives in the world of people, and there's things like cars and lawnmowers and maintenance men and park managers and the mailman and his mom and his dad, and just everything that we take for granted in our everyday world, right? He sometimes he has to maneuver around that stuff, because he's not equipped, you know. From the very first chapter, he does a cat thing. He follows a scent, and he gets on a people thing, a bus, and bingo, he's in an adventure, and it's pretty much outside his experience, but he handles it fairly well.
Tim, I know we were having some technical difficulties before we started, and you aren't able to see the comments, but I wanted to give you some comments here. Valerie says,
you're starting already.
Yeah, and Rita Hines says, good to see you, and Jim Record says, it works. And
support.
Yeah, and Janet Redmond says, this is so cool. Great to see you, Tim. Nice to meet you, Zara. So hi, Janet. Thanks for being here. Okay, and then Janet has a question. So she says, where is Max right now? Can we meet him in person?
Sure. I'd have to leave the screen.
Well, I think we need to let people know that Max is modeled on someone that lives with Tim, but Max is actually a fictional character.
True story.
Yeah. So true story. So it is Max's model available close by?
I can run and get him.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for coming here. This is very exciting. This is my first Crowdcast event, so I'm really glad you all made it over here. Crowdcast is really great because unlike Google Hangouts alone, where you have to be in Google and come in through Google, and Crowdcast, you can come in with Facebook accounts and with Twitter accounts as well. So that it has the ability to reach a much broader audience. So I notice, in Crowdcast there's a place to ask questions. And also there's a poll about what you would like to hear most from Tim. So be sure to take the poll, and we'll be checking that a little later. And if you have any questions, please put them in either here in the comment stream where you're all commenting, and we'll do them. Okay, so Janet has a question for me while we're rounding up Max's double. She says, thank you for having this event. How did you meet Tim? Actually, remember Tim was telling you about the dark story that he was writing, the screenplay? So he originally came to me with his screenplay. Gosh, I don't remember how long ago. It's at least 7 years, could be longer. So that's how long we've known each other. And then when he got the idea from Max and started writing the Max stories, I really encouraged him to continue because I think they're just so delightful. And so to me, this is really exciting for Tim to see this all coming. Here he is. Tell us who this is, Tim.
This is my muse, Smokey. Come on.
He looks a lot like Max.
Well, when we point a camera at him, he becomes Max.
Okay.
Plays like Max. I just woke him up.
Smokey. All
Hold
right.
on to those paws. Yeah.
This is enough of this. Oh, Smokey, thanks for doing this. and
Having a good time, right?
Valerie says Max must be out catting around.
Catting around.
But we're really glad Smokey came to visit.
I don't think people in my writing group have ever met him.
Oh,
This is a first.
the real first one.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. So is this all done? Can I let him down?
Yeah, I think you can let him down now. He's had his appearance.
Okay.
Okay, well, I have another question for you. And um, music is referenced often in these stories, especially in the titles. Why is that?
Yeah, there's lots of song titles, and on purpose too. I kind of see it as a sense memory type of thing, an emotional tie-in with the reader, so that when readers read the chapter title, that would evoke emotion from a common pool of knowledge in our culture. And it's sort of cute too. It does allow, it's difficult to take a title or the premise and theme of a song and create a story around it with him because he's a cat. With people, I suspect it would probably be easier because most songs are about people, right? Okay, so what I do an awful lot with the titles is just set up a theme and get it moving for myself. But I also see it as a way for people to connect because it's all, popular culture type of stuff.
And I think for each of the titles that you have, there's a resonance about that particular song that carries over into the story as well. So there's an emotional tie both with the readers and with the stories, because the stories vary in tone. I guess that's what I want to say, because the overall tone is Max's voice, but some of them are sweeter and some of them are quite adventurous and
True story.
So yeah. So how do you come up with those adventurous stories? I mean, no one would ever, most people, all right, would say, how can you have adventure stories with cats?
Well, they get into situations all the time, but I really haven't a clue how it pertains to him exactly. There's kind of a roundabout way of how this stuff starts with him. It's maybe he's doing something, I'll watch Smokey do something and I'll relate it to Max. And, in short order, I'm imagining how Max would go about doing this or doing that. And all of a sudden I'm just, along for the ride, and I'm working it. There's an awful lot of stuff that happens from my past too. There are a couple instances in a couple of the stories that actually happened to me when I was a child, where I got into trouble, and I just put Max in there instead of myself, and he gets to deal with an awful lot of this stuff, There's no real cut. It's not cut in stone, so to speak. It's just a kind of a grab bag of how things, sort of generate out, And at this point, because I've written so much about him, it's not terribly difficult to find other things for him to be adventurous or mysterious or whatever about. And the stories kind of, once they start, they kind of move to a conclusion. And because they're short stories, they can go fast.
They do. And I know that there's a reason that you made the story short. You want to tell us about that?
Oh, well, the original idea, the concept behind that was I wanted people to be entertained in the course of their day so that they could pull up these stories and consume them like on a lunch break or a coffee break. Uh, if they were traveling by car or train or even in an airplane, they could look at them, read them, consume them in 15, 20 minutes, a half an hour. And they're standalone stories, so they go from the beginning, the middle, through the middle, and to the end. And hopefully they're entertained. I mean, I never thought to keep a thread alive for 100 pages or even more. So they're quick.
Yeah, they are. They're quick. They're delightful reads, and I would say, except for the first two chapters in this book, the park, which introduces us to Max and the park and his mom and dad, and the second chapter, which is totally devoted to Max. It's called
all of his quirks.
It's all his quirks and his various Maxisms and his good and bad angel and all that sort of thing. So they're just delightful. So you were talking about writers using real life experience and then switching around with characters. Tell us a little bit more about that. How you told us a couple of things where from your childhood it was you, but you had Max doing those things. Tell us a little more about mixing that real life experience and then switching them around with the characters in your books.
Yeah. Just like they say, write what you know.
Mm-hmm.
What I didn't get in the beginning was how little of what you know are they're like these little kernels that were true to me. And they would like sprout and take off in all kinds of directions, and how little to do with me or my truth they became for my characters. In other words, my characters didn't have to do the experience that I did when I was 8 years old and I did something stupid. They didn't have to go through the whole thing. They just needed to experience part of that, and then from their character's point of view, they would grow in all kinds of directions from there. And I never saw that in the beginning when I was writing, but because these stories are so quick, I had to get to the meat of the matter, the adventure, the climax, the catastrophe, whatever, and then into the end fairly quickly.
Okay, and that brings us to a question from Janet Redmond.
Uh-huh.
How do you decide how they will end each story?
Well, Max has to live through it. That's a fact. The one thing about Max, and I've said this from day one, Max is all about hope. And because he's living in this big world that is kind of out of his control, right? He needs to come to the end of the adventures successfully. But if you notice in a lot of the stories, what is amazing to his mom and his dad, right, after they learn, however that is, Max, on the other hand, doesn't think of it as that big of a deal. In the end, it's over. He's going to go catch some Z's or eat or do the basic cat thing. he loves adventure. He loves getting out and doing this and that and the other. Uh, it's kind of a balance between these. His adventures have to be probable, even possible, and I feel like I can go only so far out on a limb um, before I have to start reeling it in, you know.
Yep, yep, because they have
Did
a
I answer your question, Janet?
certain length. Yeah, Janet just type in the comments. And then we have another question.
Ah.
And that, hold on. I'm getting that's from Jim Shepard. He asks, how much of Tales from the Park is a rewrite of your lifetime and how much is from other draws?
I don't know if I can do that on a percentage. I mean, my very first thought was probably 50-50, but, you know, an awful lot of the characters that are in the park, besides the cats, are in fact people that I've known, you know. So the park is populated with a lot of people that I have drawn from my past. Max, to a big degree, is a reflection of me, but he's also his own character. He's his own person. Did I just say that, his own person?
Yeah, he is his own person.
I'm in trouble.
Well, you know that. Speaking of that, it really leads me to another question I had, and that is about Max's language and the way he talks, because he draws you right in. It's one thing, he's just a very immediately recognizable and empathic character right away. I mean, you just in the first paragraph, you know Max. You know, this is how he talks. And does that tie with how he came to be the main character in the park?
Oh, he was destined to be the main character. For this situation in the park, there had to be a Maxter. I had to have a character or somebody that was going to be out and about, and find all these stories or be involved in their own stories, their own situations. Originally, I think I saw them as him stumbling upon stories. You know, like I said, every little trailer had their own little story in there. And what happened was that Max, even though he's traveling through these people's lives and doing this stuff with them, he is, in fact, a big part of the story. And because he's involved, he sort of changes their story. There's been, you know, I thought about it for a long time, and after a couple of starts and stops, I came to the realization that Max couldn't be too, I have a tough time with this word, anthropomorphized?
Anthropomorphic.
Okay. That he definitely has to be a little off. He can't be even though I say his bottom line is that he's a cat, he can't be 100%. And neither does he talk to people. He talks to his readers. You know, he tells his story. I mean, think of him as just a cat that's just got really great brains.
That's really great. Okay, we have some questions, official questions, that from the, what is this doing this? Sorry, folks. From the question part. So I'm going to ask these questions because they're going to be time stamped on the video. So the first question is, how did you learn so much about Max's personality?
Well, I have my little muse, and it wasn't difficult to just simply watch him. you know. And I'm lucky. Smokey is very vocal when he wants to be. Um, and it wasn't hard for me with my imagination to, conjure these things, what he was saying, his different meows and mews and murrs and all of this stuff, right? And he wants, as a real live cat, he wants definite things from me at different times of the day or night. And he's got ways of communicating to me about it. And over time, an awful lot of his personality is just seeped into what became Max. Now, Smokey doesn't get into any of the trouble that Max does. So I just took the start of Max from Smokey and started to elaborate and make him a little bit bigger than life. I've made him, he's very fearless. So is Smokey. They resemble one another. Well, they look exactly alike. Smokey is a very typical cat. He's got a curiosity. So I just made Max have more curiosity. And one thing about Smokey is people like him, And so I just took Max and made him more likable and gave him friends, which is actually based on a situation that happened with me many, many years ago. Smokey actually had I don't want to call it a second family, because it was just one woman who lived alone, and he was her companion for X amount of hours out of the day. She even had photographs of him and whatnot. And later, when I found out, she showed us the photos, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and it was incredible. And it wasn't difficult to take that. It seemed a natural fit. Mm-hmm. That Max would go out and find other friends, and some of these friends would have very particular reasons why he would be interested in them. It's not just food, right?
Right.
But they're interesting people, so Max needs to go there and see them, be with them, talk to them, etc.
That's great. And then there's another question in the questions, and that's from Valerie, and she says, how long have you been able to communicate with cats?
Since I went crazy. Oh, geez. How do I answer that? It's not something that all of them do for me. Smokey did. I communicated with him, and we're buddies and whatnot. There's some basics. You have a pet, they let you know what they want, and it's usually 2 or 3 types of things that happen every day. I'll have to think more on that.
Okay, that was a good answer. Okay, Tim, you wanted to read a couple of sections from Tales from the Park, this first section. So you want to just start right in and tell us what it is, and then give us a little taste of Tales from the Park.
Okay. This is, I'm pretty sure it's chapter 2. It's called Baby. And a lot of things happen with Max in and around the trailer. Sometimes the hardest thing for me to do as a writer is to get him up either in the morning or whenever out of a cat nap and out of the trailer, because being a cat, he can't just open a door, even though he's been successful at doing it. And you can see a lot of cats, like on YouTube, opening doors. All right. Back on my deck, Baby licked my wound and nuzzled me. It was fantastic. But what could we do next? Could she stay with us? My mom and dad would have something to say about that. As we sat pondering these questions, the answer drove up and parked in our carport. My mom was home. As Mom approached and caught sight of my bloody paw, she screamed and scooped me up. I tried to wriggle out of her grasp, but she managed to hold on to me. Baby gazed up at us. Mom jerked the slider open, and in she went, but the door slid shut before Baby could get in. I meowed my most desperate meow. Mom no doubt thought I was being a wuss. Mom cooed, "Oh, you poor thing, so much blood. You are such a little troublemaker," followed by, "Tonight, I'm going to keep you in for your own good." With that announcement, she turned and finally noticed Baby. "Who's your little friend, Max? She sure is a pretty one." Mom kissed me on my head bone and then took me into the bathroom. Faintly, I could hear Baby's sad meows calling me from the deck. Mom did not let me out that night. I think she knew something was up. In the morning, she gave me extra fresh water and food before she left for work. My dad was out of town, so I'd be locked in with no way to get out to be with Baby. Later, when Baby did show up, we talked a bit through the glass door, using our special languages of meows and mews. She slept outside our trailer all by herself, listening to her mom call her late into the night. Then I remembered the hole in our bathroom floor. If you pulled the corner of the carpet back, you could look down and see the underside of our trailer. Maybe she could squeeze through the hole and into the house. Excitedly, I ran to the glass door and told her my plan. Like a shot, Baby took off. From outside, I heard her as she started to dig a hole under the trailer skirts. I pulled back the rug and a streak of light poured onto the ground below, showing her where to go. In a minute, her paw reached out of the darkness from below. Looking down, I saw her yellow eyes peering back at me. Her purrs filled my ears and my head. Reaching over with my paw, we touched. I was transfixed.
Oh, Tim, that is so sweet.
It's so sweet.
Yeah, I love that with Baby. You know,
It's how they met.
yeah, Rita Hines has a question and said, maybe I missed it, but where are the stories you can download? Rita, if you go up above where it says Tales from the Park in red, you can just, that'll take you, after the show, that'll take you immediately to the Amazon site where you can download them there. So thanks very much for answering that question. So that was such a sweet story, but there's really a wide range of stories and types of stories in Tales from the Park. And Max has such a range of emotions. One thing, though, that we know about Max is that trouble finds him.
Yes.
And how do you find these exciting cat moments when Max is in trouble? It's always about being a cat who's full of curiosity. I mean, how do you find those?
You know, it's not terribly difficult to get him into trouble these days. He finds it, and off we go. But you know, an awful lot of even though the adventures can be life-threatening, not all of them are. You know, he doesn't want to. One of the worst things for Max is to be caught by a human and being turned over to his mom. And she realizes that this little guy has an abundance of cat curiosity, almost to the point of danger. So many times that curiosity starts out as some little thing like a bug in the backyard, and off Max goes, following his nose. And then one thing just simply leads to another. You have to remember that his bottom line is, in fact, he is a cat. And a lot of kids, he just doesn't know when to stop. And he has to have other people or whatever to further the adventure along. You know, there's an awful lot of things that happen with people, but there's just as many adventures that happen with other animals or cats. In a funny way, if you watch your cat or dog, they will show you how logical they are and how they deal with those problems. And to a big degree, that's what I did. I just watched my two cats and how they dealt with stuff, you know, as problems came up. Short of ending in a cat fight, that is.
Right. I know I mentioned the poll at the beginning of our time, and we're kind of 50-50, more about writing in character, and I think we talked about that quite a bit. And then more about getting a book published. And I think we can save those that part till the end. So thank you, everybody, for participating in the poll. And we'll get to the book publishing part. I really want to focus, because this is a book lunch party. Yay!
That is.
Stay with Max and Tim for a while. So, Tim, could you read us one of those dangerous times for me when he, you know, he gets in some pretty tough straits?
This is from Black Dog, and it's always been a favorite of mine because dogs and cats don't get along. It also includes, well, let me just read it. Okay. This is the excerpt. Curiosity came over me. I wanted to see what was up with this black box. Now, this is a good example of Max not seeing things the way people see things. This is what I meant by things being a little off. He sees this as a black box, whereas we see it as something different. The park manager was hiding it. Good Angel warned me not to be so nosy. Bad Angel agreed, saying with a wink, you might get hurt. A dare is a dare, even coming from a cat angel. Stepping off the railing, I dropped to the deck. An easy leap from there brought me to the street and the golf cart. In a second, I was standing over the black box. The park manager was still yelling instructions to the maintenance man on how to apprehend Black Dog. Trying to steady himself, maintenance man grabbed the windshield brace on the golf cart. His adversary made one last effort to pull him away. Then the looped rope broke in two. For a moment, it looked like this heavyweight bout had ended in a draw. Well, not exactly. Tricky maintenance man lifted the pole over his head and brought it down hard, missing his opponent by inches. Black Dog simply placed a huge paw on the pole, making it immobile. Barking furiously, the massive canine bit the pole and wrenched it with ease from maintenance man's hands. Then the mighty beast thrashed the pole from side to side in victory. A little shaken, maintenance man reached over for the black box, but grabbed me instead. Not surprisingly, my bad angel flew away in a hurry. With a howl, I lashed out at maintenance man, scratching and clawing his hand and arm. He recoiled and yelled in pain. I had but a second to make my escape. I stood with my front paws on the backrest, which turned out to be a mistake. With my bare back exposed, he was able to grab me by the extra fold of skin over my spine. In pain, I let out another howl as he pulled me off of the seat and held me up over his head with a look of triumph on his face. But it only lasted for a second, because when he looked down, he was staring straight into the dark eyes of Black Dog.
That's so wonderful, Tim. Thank you.
The black box is, in fact, a radio.
So let's go back. Tell us why Black Dog is one of your favorites.
Well, it's kind of a juxtaposition of, cat versus dog. At least that's the way Max sees it in the beginning. A black dog is this giant, really big dog, like a mastiff or something even larger. Think Hound of the Baskervilles. And he doesn't really terrorize the park as much as he makes people very, very fearful. In the beginning of the story, Max talks about him almost mystically, that he's like this loner legend that gets out and creeps around the park and creates havoc, and everybody's afraid of him and that sort of thing. Max is leery of him too. He doesn't want to get near him. And then there's the difference in size. I mean, Max is not a very big cat. He's actually a medium-sized cat who always happens to be a little overweight, whereas Black Dog is huge. Black Dog, even if in a kindly moment, could probably put the hurt on somebody just by being around him, leaning on him, sitting on him, reaching up with him with his claws, and that sort of thing. The idea that everybody was afraid of him, I think that's partly of what appeals to me, because, if Black Dog were going to come down the street and walk by Max's trailer and Max was outside, for sure Max and Black Dog were going to hook up and there was going to be some kind of catastrophe.
Yeah, I want to read a couple of comments here, Tim. First, Jim Shepard says, "What is so great is how easy it is to imagine yourself being right there with Max. You can visualize the story so well." And I agree, Jim. I think it has a lot to do with the voice, Max's voice. He just brings you right in with the way he tells the story. And Janet says, "I agree. Tim is great at painting a visual picture to put you right there with Max." Yeah, so thanks. Thanks. So, he brought up in that story, we had the good angel and the bad angel. You want to tell us a little bit about those angels?
Max's angels. They came late, and the book was basically written, and they didn't come into it until much, much later. And I created, I think, 2 chapters from scratch where they were involved, and a couple of others that I just sort of inserted them in and did a rewrite on them. Every so often, especially in popular literature, there's gonna be authors that are gonna give their character 2 sides of their personality, a good and a bad side. And a lot of times, the classic is a good angel that sits on your shoulder and whispers in your ear to do really great stuff, right? And then on the other shoulder, there's that bad guy who's telling you, nah, don't do that. It's more fun to do this, and we can always ask forgiveness later and stuff like that. Well, Max needs to be kind of innocent in a lot of his dealings with people. So I thought I could give him, how could I make him totally not at fault when stuff happens? Like some ice cream gets consumed or something like that. Well, the answer was somebody else had to do it. And the idea, it was really the bad angel that first popped up. And then I thought he has to have a counterpoint. someone to make him not go so over the top all the time. And whenever one was around, the other was sure to be close by. A lot of Max's interaction with them, in fact, happens with them as a couple. So there's a little bit of conflict that happens between the angels, and then of course there's always conflict that's coming down between the three of them. So it was just another way of being able to conjure up some trouble for Max to get into on an innocent level, in just day-to-day stuff where it didn't have to be an adventure per se. It was just things that were happening that could happen around the house and stuff like that. And I just think they're adorable. In my mind, I see them as kittens, one solid black and one solid white. They've got wings, they fly. Max is the only one that can see them unless the angels allow it, right? There are some cat angel rules, and I have to admit that the concept wasn't totally original. Even though I was thinking about it, I came across an old children's book, a picture book, that had an angel in it with the cat, and it was just so adorable. I couldn't resist. I don't know if I've talked or written about them being so cute, but it's the big round eyes and the little chin and the cute little paws and the short little legs and tails. And after I had done a couple of rewrites where I put them in, after I thought them up, I laughed about them to myself for days. So I was thinking to continue on with it, because if I found it funny for days, then I would hope that other people would at least find them humorous. And it gives him another dimension. I mean, it's not just him viewing the real world. He's got this other world that he moves in,
Yeah, he does have this other world. It's and I think one of the major charms of the book and all the stories within it is how Max, how the audience, I think it was Valerie, said, Max just brings you right along with him right from the get-go. He brings you right along with him in the story. There's no waiting, there's no long introduction. There's just, here we are, right with Max, and stuff starts happening. And with Max, stuff is going to happen, right?
It does, yeah.
Yeah. So let's spend a few minutes with the publishing questions and everything. So this is the first book for you and Max. So first of all, how does that feel?
Oh, I'm really excited. I've lost sleep. I can't think. I can't think. I think all the time about that it's done. I mean, there's still an awful lot of the unknown. I mean, how things are going to progress, how people are going to like it, and stuff like that. It's really kind of thrilling, especially when you consider that so far, friends, family, a writing group have been involved, but now it's the outside world and people all over. Max even has a Twitter account and a Facebook page, and there's people from all over the country, and a few from like England, Germany, that are paying attention. He's got a Twitter follower that's in the entertainment business. he's moving right along, you know.
Yeah, it's a Max. I think part of what is so much fun about Max is his, you know, is his Maxitude. It's his attitude. It's it's his, just he's ready for it.
He
And
is, and he
he,
deserves it too, and he'll tell you from the get-go.
so just let's talk a little bit about publishing. First, I want to say that Jim Shepard says, "I'm buying the book. Who's in?" And
Yeah,
Valerie says, "Yes, one." And then Janet said, "I bought it already. Can't wait for the next book." So thanks, Janet. There's 3 more coming that are in this volume of Tales from the Park. So we have a lot more stories coming. That's very exciting. And I have a question for you, Tim, about, going from, I think one of the things that many writers aim for is that finished thing that goes out into the world. And now you're in this next stage. You're still writing, but at the same time, now you're a published author, and here you are. You're doing this show, and it's Tim and Max and Smokey, and so that's kind of a whole new dimension. So, and then there's all the stuff of getting the book up on Amazon and all the technical things that happen. There's really a lot that goes into getting a book out there into the world. What do you think was the most challenging part for you, and what do you think was the most, really exciting thing for you?
challenging. Oh
Yeah.
God, formatting the bloody thing, because it, you know, um, Amazon has their own rules, and a lot of times you don't know what the next rules are until you go past, the thing that you're dealing with before you get to step 2. Um, I was on a real wide learning curve with that. I did have some help, some big help, and it took a while. It really did. And then the media stuff, and I had help there as well. That was fun, and it was thrilling too, because all of a sudden, it's once again it was a family and friends and writers group thing, and then it became this bigger thing, this media thing. And granted, it's just starting, it's small, but I have hopes that it's going to get bigger and bigger, and who knows, we might be up there with Garfield and Morris. How about that?
Yeah, Max is definitely a very clear personality. I don't know. We have time for maybe a couple more questions if you guys want to put them in the comment stream. And meanwhile, I'm going to post here in the comment stream. For those of you who haven't joined the Max gang, why is this not going? Okay, Max gang. Computer stalling here. There. There's a link for joining Max's newsletter, and that'll keep you up to date when new books are coming out and any other publishing events or events like this that Tim is doing. So I encourage you all to join the Max gang and get little notes from Max. Any other questions about publishing from our audience? Anything else, Tim, that you want to tell us about the publishing journey? Like, taking that big step and going, okay, I'm ready to get this out in the world. What made you feel that you were ready?
Well, I got really good input from my writers group. We had been through this. We had been through the book twice, and I was fearful that, or concerned actually, that any more editing, any more polishing, and I would start to lose his voice. Okay, and that the stories would start to become bland. And so I thought, for sure that time it had come to an end, and I needed to start sending it out, querying and sending out samples to agents and stuff. And I think because he's so unique and he's so niche, even though there are millions of cat lovers, out there, um, I was getting a steady response of people that agents that were telling me no. I mean, they were very nice rejection letters. They even spelt my name right, but they were rejection letters, nevertheless. And I felt like I was running out of time for some reason. I don't know why. And so that's why I went the Amazon route. That's kind of it in a nutshell,
Okay.
I feel it's my feeling that there's more and more ebooks are coming out, and I was told by somebody that I respect that Max was a perfect fit or Tales from the Park was a perfect fit for this type of publishing because of the fact that they're all standalone. They're all standalone stories, and it would be a natural to turn him into a series, and that's pretty much what's happened.
Well, it's very exciting, and it's also very encouraging for other writers.
Yes.
To know that, it takes a lot of it really takes a lot of work to put a book together. And it takes even more work that has absolutely nothing to do with writing about, what Tim was mentioning, formatting and getting everything right and meeting all the particular online publisher criteria. In this case, it's Amazon, and Tim's right. You were describing it, Tim. I was thinking about, some foreign bureaucracy. You go to one window and they tell you, no, you have to go, bring this over to there and get that.
Good analogy, yeah.
Then bring it back, and anyway, that's what it reminded me of. So yeah, so I for writers who are considering publishing and taking that step, absolutely worth it, but just be prepared to take the steps as they come. I think that's the important part is don't skip any, take them, do them, but don't get frustrated. Just go ahead and do them. And I can't thank our audience enough for being here and coming in and asking questions. And I wanted to read this one from Janet Redman. She says, "I'm so happy for you, Tim, at arriving at this milestone with your writing. It was a long time coming, and you totally deserve this. I'm so glad you stuck it out."
Yay!
Yay! Yay! So yay, book party lunch! Yay! And I hope too that this is inspiring for anyone else who's thinking about taking that leap and getting their story out into the world. So Tim, we have like 1 minute. You have any last words?
Oh, just thank you to the audience. Thank you to my writers group. Thank you, Janet. And thank you, Zara. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. And thank you for joining us on the Tales for the Park book launch party. And don't forget, if you go right above here, you can click on the link and get Tales from the Park. All right. Thank you all.